Okay, there we go. We're back. So it's great to be back in Belgium. Paul, when was I here last time?
3 years.
3 years ago. And we wanted to save the best for last. Isn't life in Belgium better than home? What do you think? Well, I was looking, I did some research, and it's true that the number one Formula One racer in the world was born, his mother was born here, right? So isn't he really Belgian?
He was born in Belgium.
Yeah.
And read by a Dutch.
But, you know, Wikipedia says Belgian Dutch. I think someone should edit Wikipedia. And then, of course, every time an American drinks a Budweiser, we're really supporting your economy. See, so I think life in Belgium is so much better because of Budweiser. So we are going to take the required coffee break, which is very important. But we don't have espresso here. Is that correct, Paul?
It seems like.
Yeah, that's the only problem I have with being in Belgium today is that we're not having espresso. We have a great story to tell. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do that. I have a new LinkedIn newsletter on modern retailing in automotive. So if you want to stay connected with some of the things that are happening in the US, you can go to my LinkedIn profile and look for the modern retailing newsletter. So today I just need your help. Ooh, echoes. Would you participate in today's presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Is it right?
Yeah.
So you're not afraid to answer questions?
No.
Ask questions? Laugh?
We won't sing, however.
Okay, singing is not required. I'm a bad singer as well. But it's very important that we talk. Since I've been here a few years ago, a number of things have changed. And I think that's the context of where I want to start today. Has anybody else felt in the last 2 years automotive retailing has changed pretty dramatically? What did that look like? How about fuel prices? Is anybody surprised how much it costs to heat your home? How much has it gone up? Has it doubled? Triple. Crazy, right? I know I have a home in Montalcino, Italy, which is in Tuscany, and I saw, and the house sits mostly empty most of the time, and I saw the heating bill, go up, and I'm like, what possibly is going on? And what's very interesting is that the average salary for someone in Italy is relatively low by U.S. standards. A lot of people are making, say, 1,500 euro, 2,000 euro a month, but their heating bill has gone up a few hundred euros. Is that how much has your heating bill gone up? Has it gone up a few hundred euros?
Yeah, definitely 300.
Yeah, so it's a very strange time. And of course, last time fuel prices in the US got this high, there was a kind of a move to smaller cars. But I think for this period, it may be moving people and accelerating in EV consideration. Even putting solar power on homes in the US isn't that common, but again, I'm hearing people talk about this. How about used car prices? Have they been going up significantly here as well? I saw an article this morning about the debt of the US consumer for their vehicles. And the question is when does the balloon pop? Unlike Holland and Belgium, where you have leasing, where you really don't own the car, you kind of long-term rent, in the US, a lot of people lease, but our leases are still the responsibility. We own the car and we turn it back in 3 years normally. But people are spending now $5,000, $10,000 over the suggested list price for new cars. And 20%, sometimes 25% higher for used cars The question is what happens in a few years when the prices normalize. It's very challenging. And then this is a dealer, an Audi dealer in Lakeland, Florida. I live in Florida. Lakeland is a part of Florida that never believed COVID existed. They were also avid Trump supporters. So during the initial COVID, you would see people on their boats in Lakeland, Florida, tied up, having parties. It was kind of an odd part of denial. But I asked Gino, the gentleman with the beard, how many cars he has on the lot today that aren't pre-sold. 5. And he said there's been weeks now where there's absolutely no new cars for sale. See, build to order isn't a US thing, right? We normally go in, we buy the car the same day. It's been the way it has been for years. But now, build to order is starting to come up, and some of the OEMs are saying we're making maximum money with pretty much build to order model. For a US car maker to talk about build to order, which typically was maybe something you did for a BMW or an Audi or something from a US perspective, is a big change. And then dealer profits. How many franchise dealers do we have here? You have a franchise, yeah? Few of you. Homeless, any homeless people? No, independent used car dealers. Great, okay. Manufacturers, you work for an OEM? Okay, all in the back. They're running out as quickly as possible. Dealer profits in the US have doubled in a year. So the person who runs a store in the US, we call the general manager. So in Belgium, how much does a general manager make per year? What's their salary with bonus? Anybody want to guess? I'm not asking your salary. I'm not asking personal questions or making people sing. If I'm running a Van Mossel Mercedes store, I think we passed one on the way in, Paul, right? We did? How much would that general manager for that campus make a year? Do you guys work in the auto industry here, or you guys work like for the garbage industry?
It's like sex. You don't talk about salaries in Belgium.
You don't? Wow. How about sex?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. What's an approximate salary for a general manager at a relatively, like a city-based car dealer?
70,000 all in.
70,000 all in. So it was interesting with all the prices going up for the cars, and now some dealers charging over the manufacturer's suggested retail price, which we call MSRP. One of my clients has a Mercedes-Benz store in California, and the general manager of the store in their pay plan gets 10% of the net profit for the store. He made $4 million last year. The general manager. Because the Mercedes store made $40 million in 2021. The average general manager in the US for a franchise dealer is making anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million in 2021. Now, it used to be something like 200,000 to 500,000. It's crazy. What happens when those pay plans go back to normal? Interesting consideration. And then some of you are familiar with Spotty Car, correct? Similarly, in the US, out of the blue, meaning without warning, out of the blue means without warning. A surprise to dealers was General Motors announcing Car Bravo, a national website to sell used cars. The dealers would pay General Motors maybe $500 per car to be on this privileged website. Yet, this has already started in Europe. Are OEMs trying to move into the used car business? Are they a manufacturer? Are they a competitor? Are they going to be both? Very interesting times. So I bring some of these up. What about in Belgium? If you had to list some thoughts in your mind, what are some of the biggest challenges you see for the next year or two here in Belgium? What would it be? Remember, you said you were going to help me. You said you were going to talk to me.
Online business.
Okay, so when you say online business, meaning more of the car sales being completed online?
Yeah, the whole structure will change because now you have a lot of websites where you can do already a reservation of a car.
Right.
Next step will be that you do a buying online.
Yes.
And the delivery will take place at the dealership you never went to. So you select the dealership in your area and there is your car available. So it's for the dealership who choose that normally a dealer come in for prospection, test drive and the whole process. He only comes in to
take delivery.
Car, and then afterwards he needs services. So it's another approach than
the traditional one.
Yeah, the traditional one.
Yeah, so consumer direct selling, we're going to talk about today. How about the move of moving dealers from franchisees to agents? Right? This started, Stellantis canceled the contracts of all their dealers in Europe. Which when I heard that news, I was like, wow, if I was a Stellantis dealer and 3 years ago built a beautiful building, I'd be pretty upset right about now. But some people said, oh, that could never happen in the US. Well, we're going to talk about some things that are changing because the agent model is being introduced into the US when no one thought it would be possible. What else? Consumer direct sales, and then related to that is the idea that the OEMs want to collapse the distribution network cost and move dealers to a fixed profit plan.
The transition to electric vehicles.
Yeah, transition to electric vehicles, and more importantly, how are we going to answer all the questions that consumers have?
And no after service revenue due to the transition to electric vehicles.
Right. I think one of the biggest changes is what does the after sales life cycle look like? What does the scheduled maintenance look like, right? My son, a few years ago, bought a Tesla. I went with him because I wanted to see what the process was. And, I asked him, how's his car? And other than flat tire or something,
Windshield wipers.
Yeah, windshield wipers, yeah. He hasn't had any major repairs. Although I heard, he didn't tell me, but I heard he may have a crack in his windshield, which maybe be $8,000. I don't know where that number came from, but that's not an insignificant cost structure. What else?
The increased mixing between what used to be the car dealers that did almost exclusively new cars, and they're majorly moving into the used car business and upsetting the balance, as it were.
Sure.
Between the independent and the
Yeah, if I was an independent used car dealer, I'd be really nervous right now. The fact that not just the OEMs in the US now introducing, but when Stellantis introduced Bodyguard, I'm like, Now in the US, most franchise dealers historically have made their money from used cars. So there is no such thing in the United States really as a new car only dealer. Prior to COVID, about 10 to 15% of dealer net profits came from new cars. 10 to 15%. The majority was service and used cars. During COVID, the last 2 years, the new car profits have been close to 50%. And of course, crazy numbers, right? Like you saw. How could one Mercedes store net profit $40 million? All I know is that general manager is really happy with his pay plan. But if I was an independent dealer, and we're going to talk about this today, we have to prepare. We can't put our head in the sand and just ignore things. So in order to do that, I want to challenge you to read this book. It is available on Amazon. I saw they had a Dutch version. I don't know if there's a French version. By the way, is my English easy to understand?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, it's important. It's important.
Sounds native.
Yeah, it's have to be accent neutral, you know. But a good friend of mine asked me to read this book, and I'm telling you, it was one of the best books for now. Because more than ever, if you're an independent dealer, a new car dealer, or an OEM, we're being forced to change, and I want to try to avoid binary thinking. The binary thinking is, from an OEM, the dealers will do whatever I tell them. From a dealer perspective, the OEM is always against me. And for the used car dealer, I'm small and the world is crushing me with change. How do we think different? So the question I have for you is, are you actively open-minded? Now, do you work with anybody who's closed-minded? Do you work with anybody in your business that's closed-minded?
Is it like also possible to be like
Both?
ajar, like?
Yeah, sometimes people can be open-minded, but closed. You know, no one said they work with a closed-minded person. So I'm thinking that you're lying to me right now. There are people, right, you go to talk to about change, and they're like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So what's interesting about this book is the author says that there are 4 mindsets that people have for change. And the author states that the best mindset is to be a scientist. Has anybody went to school for science, like you went in college or you had some work in the science field? Normally not a transition to car dealers, that's correct. But what makes a scientist so powerful is once they publish a paper or a theory, they get excited when they get this type of call. Hey, there's some guy across the world who's calling, for you. Okay, what's up? I'm sorry, professor or doctor, but your theory is wrong. And I proved it. Most scientists were like, great, tell me how you did it. What evidence? Oh, what can I learn? Show me your data, right? That's what scientists do, and they do it all the time. So at a science conference, if somebody presents a paper that challenges common thinking, they're celebrated. You with me? How many times have you brought a new idea to work or to your boss and you got thrown out? Anybody have that? They just get out of the office. Are they that nice in Belgium? See, you're lying to me again. We all have had an idea, we brought it to someone, and you feel little. Does anybody feel little after presenting a new idea? It's like, you don't know this business. Who are you to come in to tell me to change? I've been doing this for 30 years. You're laughing. See, now you know some of these people. See, now I understand. So the author says that scientists, in a sense, like to be wrong. And here's the reason why. The only time you can prove your learning is when you find out you were wrong. Think about that. The only time you can prove you learned something is when you find out that you were wrong. Oh, I didn't think of that. Okay. For years, I've been doing this for 17 years, working in automotive marketing and sales process, and I was following Google's playbook for advertising, just like every other agency in the world. But I was challenged by a dealer holding group to explain why their performance in Google Ads over the years had continually declined. And at first glance, I couldn't figure it out. But then, because I was challenged to rethink what Google told us to do, I found out that Google was actually, for the last 12 or so years, telling agencies and OEMs how to use their platform absolutely incorrectly. And I published this report admitting I was wrong. Now, why was that important? Well, I've written 9 books on automotive marketing. In the US, people would say, well, if you have a question on digital marketing, you ask Brian. And I was like, hey, I was doing it wrong because I followed someone else's advice. I assumed that they were right. I did what everyone else was doing. Now, Paul translated that paper into Dutch. If you haven't downloaded that, you can do that. But basically, Google's advice was treating car dealers very much like e-commerce companies, but we're not e-commerce companies because no one buys things like cars online fully. They may get close, yet. But I had an OEM take me out to dinner about a month ago, and any time an executive from an OEM calls me up, it's either to kill me or something else, like maybe buy me or something, but neither happened. I'm here, but they took me out to dinner in Florida and said, you saved us millions of dollars. Because when we read your paper and then applied it to our advertising, the results significantly changed. I wish I had 10% of that deal too. But the author says there's 4 thinkers, 4 personalities, 4 responses to change. I'm not going to read, but I want you to look and see if you've ever been in this mode. One of these modes, we already talked about the scientist, which is the best one. Prosecutor, somebody brings a new idea and you find every little thing wrong with it. You do not like it from the instant they bring it up. Or preacher mode. Just like salaries. Sorry, we don't talk about that. We don't challenge this. We've always done this. It's sacred. Or politician mode. This week, you're saying the company should go here until you heard the boss say it should be here. Next week, you're like, it should be here. Hold on, didn't you say? No, that was last week. Politicians float. Have you ever brought up an idea and you feel that people picked it apart without listening to you? You know, when that happens, I want to encourage you, if somebody presents a change idea to you and it seems wrong, you should ask, why does want to do that? Like with Stellantis' move into the used cars, or General Motors into Car Bravo. Why would GM want to move into the used car business? Did they know how much money is possible to be made in used cars? Do they want a piece of that business? Did they think that while the manufacturers have the upper hand on dealers because of inventory supply, they may get through something that was never thought possible before? Or is it a new way to think about how vehicles are distributed? You have to ask. When Car Bravo first came out, a lot of people were picking it apart, but I had to say, well, what's really going on here? what this slide, which was presented to the dealers, down here, digital retailing platform. This is a new platform that has not yet to be seen, but sold to General Motors from a company called Tekion. Tekion is a new software development company. The CEO is a former Tesla executive, one of the direct reports of Elon Musk. This company, Tekion, said we can build an end-to-end retailing platform for General Motors that will show everything that goes on in the shopping journey, plus what goes on in the store in real time. That sounds pretty exciting for a manufacturer. But I think part of the story was bought because that executive was part of Tesla. It's like everyone has a love affair with Tesla. In every OEM meeting, there must be like a Tesla love doll somewhere where they hug every once in a while and say, we want to be more like Tesla. But the funny thing is, they forget their roots of the dealer network, the complexity of the cars that they sell. Can a consumer properly configure a BMW by themselves? They could configure a Tesla because there's hardly anything to choose from, let alone try to configure the new Ford Bronco with 7 trim levels and about 200 option combinations. And then the politician. This was great. The dealers went nuts. Like, what are you talking about? You're going in the used car business. And by the way, just like in Belgium and in Holland, you have classified marketplaces, right? So you have Tweedehands and you have Auto Scouts or Gaspedal. In the US, we have Auto Trader, Cars.com. They're like, hold on, you're creating another used car website? What was interesting, the dealers saw through this. See, what it is and what is not, the dealers said, you have it reversed. Really, this side really should have been what it is. General Motors says, we're not selling direct to the consumer. What do you mean you're not? You just said you're creating a national portal that you own. Dealers have to pay $500 for every car that's sold. You're going to do the marketing to the consumers directly. You'll ship the car directly to the consumer. That sounds like you're selling direct. No, we're not. Come on. A replacement for Shop Click Drive. Now, you wouldn't know what Shop Click Drive is, but 2 years ago, GM came out with a button called Shop Click Drive. It was the beginning of maybe something like configuring a car to buy it online. But it was nothing really more than a basic configurator. Every dealer hates it. It doesn't allow a consumer to buy a car. This platform that they're showing, look, sales, contracting, finance and insurance, scheduling, this whole platform is a full transaction. Full, legal, contract binding sales platform, and yet they say it's not a replacement for Shop Click. Oh, yes, it is. Shop Click and Drive is a basic, some of you have this, a basic calculator or an estimator of what your cost will be. The preacher, for years, when we saw what happened to Stellantis 2 years ago here, we're like, that could never happen in the US. Never, because we have franchise laws. No one can challenge these franchise laws. But the truth is, when OEMs want change, they often get exactly what they want. Maybe it's inventory allocation. Maybe it's opening up a new point if you cooperate, if you collaborate. This book is important because some of the things that have to be discussed could put dealers in preacher mode. It can put OEMs in prosecutor mode. And the truth is, in order for us to get better, we have to be scientists. So we need to think today like a scientist. Not be defensive, but what is truly the goal? It seems that Tesla now is the model that everyone is telling manufacturers they need to be like. How do I know that? Well, they have the highest EV penetration in the US right now, about 70% of every EV vehicle. And articles like this, Barron's is one of the top financial magazines in the United States. And these writers are basically saying, you know, General Motors and Ford really should break into two companies. The EV vehicles as one company, the ICE vehicles as another, because if they broke up, they could get a multiple or a valuation much higher because of Tesla's multiple, or Rivian's multiple, or NIO's multiple. Ford just announced 2 weeks ago that they weren't going to split the two companies up. Ha ha. That's what I say. I would use another foul word, but I won't do that because Belgian people don't talk about certain things and they don't swear. But it was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to break the company up internally into two business units. And then when someone buys a Ford EV, they're a different person. They're completely different. Even though they've been buying internal combustion engines their entire life as a Ford customer, the next time they buy a car, if it's an EV, they're a different customer. They're going to go in this box, and you will no longer have control over the price. You will sell at MSRP, and you will be an agent model, where you get a fixed commission. Now, we're going to see if that's going to hold up in the courts. But the bottom line is I understand that COVID and these last few years of accelerated change, I understand the manufacturers want to reduce the cost in the distribution channel. I understand that, I heard that. But what I'm also hearing is that a Stellantis dealer who built a beautiful building, if and I'm talking Stellantis Europe here, if Stellantis invites them back, is asking them to take some space for maybe 5 or 8 cars to showcase, and they will pay them the overhead for that 10% or so of the space. And that other 90%, that's your problem. I'm like, gee, that sounds like you're breaking the trust of your dealer network. See, the only thing that holds a brand together from a U.S. perspective is the partnership and trust between the OEM and the dealer. If overnight things change, trust is broken. So today, I was talking to some dealers who have been invited back by Stellantis, and I said, what is the financial model that Stellantis is offering you when you sell a car? We still don't know. I'm like, well, how are you agreeing to still be a Stellantis dealer? We're hoping it works out. Doesn't sound like trust to me. When Ford was asked, how much will Ford pay, Ford dealers, when they sell an EV? We don't know. So, I see a rivalry starting. And maybe the franchise laws are not so strong here in the EU. Obviously, the fact that Stellantis canceled everyone's contract would be, that is impossible in the United States. That just doesn't happen. But what Ford is doing is, I think, is the soft breakup. Especially when dealers are begging Ford for vehicles. And also want to catch up in the EV world. So, how has this rivalry worked in the past? Well, it's been carrots. When OEMs want the dealer network to do something, they give them a carrot. Like if your reviews are good, or if your CSI score is good, we'll give you this carrot. And that worked really good until the last 2 years, starting with, I think, Stellantis canceling all the European kind. I saw that like, whoo, that was like, we call that a warning shot over the bow of the boat. A warning shot. Like, that's over there. But Stellantis is pretty big in the US. What basically has happened, and we all have to talk about at some point, is just what you were saying in a different, as an independent, right? You're an independent dealer. Is this idea of who owns the customer. I think it's shared. I think the OEM owns the customer and the dealer. But who controls the sale? And this is the problem that we're adjusting to and starting to talk about in the US, is because never before has the OEM said, you have to sell at one price. You will only make this amount of money. And here, more importantly, you brought this up. Both Ford and GM said, these EVs will be sold on a national website. And then I asked the questions. What about the trade? We don't have an answer for that. Will the dealers show their own banks, or will it only be the manufacturer's bank? We're not answering that question now. Will the dealer be able to put aftermarket protection packages, accessories? We're not answering that right now. Oh, hold on. So that's odd. So what's the compromise? And I'm just going to share this quickly because the second half of the presentation is very tactical things we can do to be more effective in our business. But I will tell you that what happens in the US will have an impact here and vice versa. So what's the compromise? Right now, I'm trying to figure out from this book, Rethinking, what do the manufacturers want? And I'm not going to read the list in a second, but when you see this slide, and I just changed the colors to make it Ford blue, this is exactly, Ford has not released their diagram, but from the press release, it sounds exactly the same thing. So what do OEMs want? These are the things that I believe manufacturers want, and more control over the sales process, I am not against. The question is, where does the line stop? Where does it stop? Being able to see end-to-end what's happening with every customer makes sense. I mean, we're not selling hamburgers, okay? But McDonald's, with their kiosks and their computers, and I've been in the marketing office, can see every store in real time with what's going on, every dollar, every order in real time. Do manufacturers need to have every second? No. But here's what happens. They go to a national website, someone submits a lead, they send it to the dealer, and there's a whole room, like let's just say at BMW. Here, there's a room of executives praying. Did you know that? Yeah. At BMW, Volkswagen, Volvo, they're all there. There's a room and they're praying. By the way, is it okay to pray in Belgium? It's okay, good. Here's what they're praying. I hope the dealer calls the lead. I hope the dealer emails the customer. I hope they will make an appointment. That's why Paul's in business. Right? To help people. The manufacturer saying, I have $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar business, and I'm doing marketing, and consumers are raising their hand, and I push it down to the dealers, and some don't do anything with it. You can understand why the manufacturer would want to say, hold on, we got to fix this. If I made a website that would allow people to do as much and almost all or all of the transaction, wouldn't that solve the problem my dealer's not caring about calling people back? The dealer network's lack of embracing of the internet shopper is forcing this conversation. What did the dealers want? And this is from a U.S. perspective. Freedom to create a sales process that's still compatible with the OEM's culture. If you're an Audi dealer, the showroom looks like an Audi showroom. You treat people with maybe an Audi core value. But in the U.S., which is maybe very, very different from Belgium, but on new cars prior to COVID, dealers made very little money. Where did they make the money? On the financing, the insurance, and protection packages. So a dealer might have made 500 euro, 1,000 euro on an average new car, but they would make 3,000 or 4,000 euro on the back-end finance. This model that Ford and GM just threw out there answers no questions about how dealers have made money on new cars. Can I use my own banks, or do I have to use yours? Now, in the US, unlike Belgium and Holland, where many cars are leased and the consumer doesn't own the car, the manufacturers recommend to the dealers that they use their financing. And about 60% of the time, the manufacturer's lending program is the best for the consumer. But 40% of the time, it's not. And so dealers have the ability to go to Chase Bank or Santander or another bank to get the best deal. What happens in a consumer direct model when the manufacturer controls everything? We don't know. And then how about the missing piece is the technology companies, the CRM companies, the website companies, the retailing companies. And I think they want to be able to innovate and move the industry forward. But you may not know this or think about this because maybe you think with a dealer hat. But there are thousands of people that develop software for General Motors and Ford and their dealers. That if a single, and only a single source of software was mandated as perfect for every dealer, which is impossible to create, we'll put all those people out of business without anyone. So the real question is, do we need a modern framework? And I believe we do. And I'm going to show you this framework. We're going to take a coffee break. And then we're going to dig into things you can do now here in Belgium to be more effective and prepare for change. So right now, and this is a little bit of a U.S. perspective because here's one area where the U.S. is ahead of say, Belgium and Holland in some respects. In scale, more and more the franchise dealers and independent dealers now have tools that can do like 99% of the transaction, and in some states 100%. Meaning the dealer's tool is on their website, it's powered by some company, but all their banks are in there, all their markups are in there, all their insurance packages are in there, all their accessories are in there, and the consumer could actually go to one Honda dealer and see different accessories and banks to another Honda dealer because that's the way the U.S. market works. Dealers choose their sales process and choose how to make money on the cars that they sell. Right now, many dealers, like this Honda dealer who's a client of mine, has a green button, and we're going to talk about your websites. By the way, I just picked some random websites in Belgium. So after coffee, if I picked your website, you probably might not like me, but I'm only here to help you. You'll notice that it's very clear when the consumer comes to this car what they should do, because there's a color violator. It's a green button. It's like, go here. The other buttons are the same color. They're important. But as you'll see, most of you have never thought about, do you have an online sales process? But in the US, we have true online sales process, and it goes through to their CRM, and DR is their digital retailing software, the software that actually does the paperwork calculations, taxes and fees and approvals and credit, everything in one spot. Now, what happened overnight in the US, we didn't get cancellations of franchise agreements. Stellantis broke the trust of dealers in the United States. And if there's someone here from Stellantis, this is not a personal attack. This is just me as a scientist stating facts. Stellantis had a program and approved 5 companies about to give dealers tools on their website to buy cars online. Because Stellantis said, hey, you need to be able to sell cars online. You need to meet the customer where they are. But we need to be more like Tesla. So here are 5 companies. Pick which company you like the best. And all Stellantis dealers pretty much started down that process, like my client. And their top button says, build my deal. That's from a company called Gabagoo. Strange Canadian name, but it's a great product. Overnight, Stellantis sent an email to their dealer network, a few thousand dealers in the US, and said, please cancel all your retailing tools because we want you to use the red button, which is Carzado. When I never heard of Carzado, but it is the retailing platform that Stellantis chose. Imagine 2 years of training, technology, configurations, you have a new sales process, you're doing exactly what the OEM told you to do, adapt to a digital customer, sell cars as online, or let the customer do as much as they want. And overnight, you have no more choice anymore. You have to use our tool. Unfortunately, that tool was horrible and really represented a payment calculator, not a transactional tool. But I believe in the future for the US, and I've told this to the dealers, that the manufacturers will win that on the franchise dealer's website, the authorized website, there will only be one button. And I believe the dealer won't have choice. I don't like that, but as I'm trying to say in this book, is you have to decide where your strong arguments are and where your weak arguments are. I can understand from a manufacturer's perspective, if somebody goes to Audi.be or BMW.be and then they go to a local franchise dealer's website, that they would want the sales process, the tools, the workflow to look exactly the same. I can understand that. The question is, if the customer starts to work a car deal, they don't complete it, and then that lead goes into the dealer, I believe then the dealer should be able to finish the process in the way that they choose. Because what happens in the showroom and the tools they use in the showroom is what gives them a competitive edge. So, if our industry decided not to fight with each other and work with each other and share data, it could look something like this. Right now, a dealer's website, this just happens to be a Stellantis dealer. Already, if someone fills out a form, you have all forms on your websites. I've seen those ugly things. And, or if they call, you get some type of lead today. The manufacturer is going to put their retailing tool that will allow the consumer to buy completely. For sure in the US, within the next year, most manufacturers will have completely transactional tools, working transactional tools, with the exceptions of certain states that still require a physical pen signature on legal documents. Okay. What I'm suggesting is that if the transaction isn't completed by the consumer completely, that the OEM will send the lead to the dealer. And then here's what's missing, something called a real-time messaging hub, which would allow the dealer's tool to update the manufacturer's tool as things change. So when the consumer calls and you call the consumer, the manufacturer's system is updated, instead of one system, instead of one size fits all. If you change the deal from a lease to a cash deal, update it. Oh, no, it's not going to be a cash deal. It's going to be a business lease. Okay. What that gives us is the manufacturers everything they want, which is an end-to-end complete real-time solution, but the dealer has control of the experience. Now, this is where we're going to be fighting, and I'm touring the US, working with manufacturers to embrace this model. Because a single tool doesn't work for Van Mossel. It just won't. You have 80 stores, 12 different brands. What are you going to do? Have every manufacturer have their own sales process tool? Imagine doing roll-up reports on that. Imagine doing cross-training on that. What about facilities that share multiple brands? Can you imagine that mess? Larger dealer holding groups need to have this model work, and that's why I recommended the book. It's an interesting time we're in. If more and more people are chasing the money, independent dealers have to up their game. They have to realize what's coming. For franchise dealers, you've already seen that some manufacturers are thinking of getting into the used car business, which has been where you've been making your money, and put more control over how new cars are being marketed and sold. Most franchise dealers hate the idea of being a delivery center. It seems like, wow, what's the fun of that? Let me end with one thing. The good news is that the dealer network has proven itself over time. In the US, we've never done build to order, although GM and Ford are indicating they may go to that. But here's one thing that has proven true for every manufacturer. In the US, when Toyota and Hyundai and Kia have a few hundred cars on dealer lots, and for 100 years, consumers never wait in the US when they buy a car. We buy a car pretty much the same day. We walk in, buy a car. Typically, we can do it now within an hour with all bank financing done. 1 hour. So let's fast forward when inventory supply isn't a problem. And Toyota and Kia and Hyundai have 300 cars, 400 cars like they normally do. And the Ford dealer has 10. And the GM dealers. And they start losing market share. You know what's going to happen. Someone's going to get fired. Who came up with that build to order model? That's stupid. We're losing market share. How about this scenario? In an agent model, how does the manufacturer accelerate sales? If the dealer doesn't own the car, the manufacturer does. And they're only making 500 euro or 1,000 euro or maybe EV 0 euro. Well, where's the motivation when the manufacturer says, I want to increase market share? If you've turned your dealer network into delivery centers. That's why I think we have to use this book's thinking about rethinking what automotive retail. We need to protect the entrepreneurial spirit of dealers and independents. We need to recognize we have to cut costs out of supply chain. We need to find the right dance because truly we're not adversaries. I don't believe we're adversaries. I just believe we're locked into binary thinking. If anyone told me that a manufacturer in the United States would propose one retailing software end-to-end for all their 3,000 or 5,000 dealers and think that that would work, it's never been done before, without a tremendous amount of pain. Just have to ask, is it worth the extra 1% or 2% to totally crush the spirits of your dealer network? Is it worth that? And when things are tough, you don't have your attack squad on the front lines rooting for you because you broke trust. We have to work through this. It's not going to be easy, but I have a lot of good ideas for you on how to prepare for change. Was this conversation appropriate for Belgium to have?
Of course.
Yeah? Yeah? Was it a good conversation? It's an emotional conversation. Although you guys do not show any emotion, just like the people across, the border over there. This is an emotional time, but we can't be emotional. We have to be scientists, look at the data, and come up with the right solutions. Does anybody want to do a coffee break right about now?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. I think we have a 30-minute coffee break, Paul. Is that it? Thank you. If profitability per unit is going to be set or more controlled by the manufacturers, then the question is, when a consumer goes to a national site, your earlier concern, and they're between two BMW dealers, and there's a website that allows the consumer to purchase the car, which dealer do they choose? It's a real practical question. You may say, Brian, they're always going to pick the dealer that's closest to them. That's what you might think, and that is not factually scientific.
What are you doing when you go on holiday to a destination you don't know? You go to booking.com.
Right.
You
look for the reviews.
Yeah.
Paul was making a comment about Dutch behavior versus U.S. behavior when he was in Vegas. And the Dutch are very efficient with their coffee. So yesterday we were at the hotel, and there's like 4 coffee machines, surrounded. And there was over 100 people, and there wasn't big lines. And he was like, Brian, in Las Vegas, in the Starbucks, people were 20 people deep, in line. And he said, no Dutch person would wait, 20 minutes in line for a coffee.
Pay for the coffee.
And pay for the coffee, yeah. It's true. What's also very different from, say, the US, I love espresso, and maybe that's from my Italian roots, but really Starbucks, other than a small coffee shop, really is the best place to get espresso, because if you go to a gas station, like it's very common here, the coffee isn't very good. It's normally weak, American coffee. And so we oftentimes choose things based on value. It may be experience. There's a lot of things. Like Starbucks coffee is super expensive compared to other choices. So why do people seek out a Starbucks when they could go to, in the US, a Dunkin' Donuts or a 7-Eleven or something which has really good coffee? So the question is what do we do? And there's 2 thoughts that I have here, is that we need to change from counting leads to look at sales opportunities. And part of looking at opportunity is when somebody comes into market to buy a car or lease a car, am I going to take them seriously before they become a lead? Am I going to take them seriously before they come a lead? And what's the most cost-effective way in selling cars in the future? So if our profits are going to be challenged because of new structures of retail, and as I mentioned, there's needs that the OEM have that are valid, and there's needs that dealers have that are valid, and there are needs from the software vendor community that are valid. But it's very clear that the message for the future of automotive retail is you can't be sloppy in the way you run your business. You have to more methodically think of your business by the numbers, even to a greater degree. And that's why I wanted to mention the idea, which I've talked about many times before, and I'm not sure 3 years ago when I was here if I talked about the power of a brand promise. But when someone goes to your website do you have a value proposition clearly stated in your marketing? Is there a value proposition? In your customer experience, do your sales associates remind the consumer of the benefits of doing business with you? It's a really important question, because if price no longer is the negotiating carrot, okay? And again, I'm very aware that for many dealers in the EU, they've been selling cars at the recommended price. So this is the price, it's the price. And what varied was maybe what you would give them for the trade, and maybe which financing, program or leasing company could maybe have the best offer. So if it's not about price, what really matters? Do you think a consumer today cares if you're a family-run business? Do you think they care if you've been in business for 25 years? But it's funny, when you look at some of the pitches, it's like, we've been in the business. And some people might say, and you've been taking advantage of people for 25 years, as a cynical person. So there was a book from Simon Sinek called Start With Why. I think it's very important for every business owner. What's your why? And you know what? It's actually hard for a car dealer to create this. Because your identity, say if you're a Mercedes dealer, is very tied to Mercedes. But think of the future. If Mercedes, BMW, Volvo, I can go down the list, Stellantis, has a portal where a consumer can configure and purchase or lease without much problem, then why would they choose you in the drop-down box of where they would want that car delivered? What's the value story? Or someone who calls you and they're working on that website and they have a question because you're the local dealer. What is your sales associate going to tell them that would endear them so that they service the car with you, buy future cars from you, accessories or products? So everybody does things a little different. This is just an example of a video. Now this is the long form video. Go ahead.
What was the author of the Start With Your...
Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And it's been translated in probably 25 different languages. It's a very, very popular book. And on YouTube, if English is fine with you, there is a TED Talk, which has millions of views. And you can, if you want to just listen in your car ride home today, you can just go to YouTube, Simon Sinek. And that was probably about 10 years ago or something. So I'm suggesting that every dealer and dealer holding group creates a video which summarizes their differentiation. That video can be used on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, or your website and your email marketing. It can be in the waiting lounge of your service center. It should be everywhere. Now, before I show you this video, there's a couple things that you should know. In the US, prior to COVID, on a busy Saturday, if somebody went into a Toyota dealer in a pretty good volume store, it could take 4 to 5 hours for them to buy a car. Why? Well, they would be greeted by maybe a receptionist, then matched with a sales associate. The sales associate would understand their needs a little bit better, arrange for a test drive, have the car pulled around or cars pulled around, go on a test drive, come back, and the sales associate was not empowered to make the deal. So they would sit with the customer and they're like, okay, so this is the car you want? Okay. Now, if the customer asked about price, the associate would say, okay, I'm going to go talk to my manager. leave the customer by themselves, sometimes for 10 minutes, and then talk to the manager, and then they would present some numbers, and depending if the person wanted to go, if the customer still wasn't happy, then the manager would come but they would be nice. Like, hi. Go down, sit down, and work out the numbers. And then once the numbers were established, the sales associate would be, okay, now you're going to go see the finance manager. Also called the box. Small office, expert, ninja, finance manager against innocent customer. This is where they talk about financing or leasing. Do you want extended warranty? Do you want tire protection? Do you want the nitro fill? Do you want the... Okay. That guy's job is to make the dealer $2,000 to $3,000 in profit on the deal. They understand this. The customer just saw the associate, then was introduced to the manager because the associate had no power, and then they introduced him yet to a third person, and the consumer always comes out of that office feeling a little dirty. Like, I thought the car was going to be $400 a month, and I walked out of that office and it's $515 a month. And then, depending on the scenario, they may introduce that person to a delivery specialist because the salesman wants to get the next customer, and the delivery specialist is yet another person. Okay, this is very common. So I believe the future of automotive retail is single point of contact sell. And here in Belgium, I understand your finance process is quite different. But I would say that once a consumer calls your dealership or emails your dealership, instead of a BDC model, I believe your sales associates should take ownership of the opportunity, and that's the only person that talks to that customer. Meaning they're the one who emails, they're the one who calls, not a stranger. They're the one that they meet in the showroom, they're the one who does the presentation, the test drive, and whatever your process is. So when a dealer, and by the way, less than 5% of the dealers in the United States have single point of contact, but it's growing quickly. Because here's the problem. Single point of contact is extremely efficient. And if change is coming to the automotive industry, we better change quickly this model that we need 4 people to complete a transaction, and the customer experience isn't awesome. What we've been able to prove in the US system that a single point of contact can sell and deliver the whole thing with even more profit, which was believed to be like challenging the Bible. Remember I told you the preacher? If you go into, I would say 9 out of 10 dealers and saying, you don't need the finance manager anymore. By the way, the average finance manager at a dealer makes $250,000. Some, prior to COVID, meaning $250,000, they're typically the second highest paid person in the whole dealership. And some in high volume stores prior to COVID were making well over $500,000 because they're sales monsters. So you go into a dealer who thinks that their salespeople are weak, but their finance manager is Superman, and you go in and say, we have a new sales process that gets rid of Superman. Do you understand? How dealer principal would be like, no way, that's how I'm making all my money. I'm making $2,000 to $3,000 per car, and we say that on the back end because of Superman. There's no way a single point of contact, 10, 15, 30 salespeople could do the same job.
We have multiple.
What's that?
We have multiple.
Yeah.
He does everything.
Yeah. So this is a video that for the American population who's tired and hates that process, they said, you know what our why is? We're really going to make it easy to buy a car. and we're going to take away everything that consumers hate about buying a car, and they're going to call it the Cavalli way. Oh, hold on. Let me plug in the audio, because that's something new. Where is that? It's in the front or something? Yes. Thank you. Very friendly process here. Yes. Okay, sorry.
The Cavalli Auto Group has put the fun back into car buying with a fast, upfront, and nice buying process. It's the transparent, time-efficient vehicle purchasing experience that you've been waiting for. Our Cavalli Way and single point of contact sales process is custom fit to the way you want to purchase a vehicle. Whether it's online, offline, or anywhere in between, we meet you there. First, upon inquiring about your new vehicle, either online or in-store, one of our sales team members will reach out, make contact, and guide you through the entire sales process, from start to finish. We'll introduce your car of interest and help you through the next steps.
So the Cavalli Way sales process, the way that it works is that you work with one person the entire process. So it's completely transparent, it's upfront. You're going to land on a vehicle, and then if that's the vehicle that works for you and your family, you're going to come in and spend that entire time working out whatever the best deal is, whether it's lease, finance, cash. We're going to do it in an upfront, transparent manner so the whole family gets involved.
There's a lot of people involved, a lot of moving parts in that traditional process. Within the single point of contact, it really is seamless because the consumer is able to meet one person, build that relationship the entire time.
So a lot of other dealerships, they're going to spend some amount of time with the salesperson getting to know the vehicle in the beginning, and then they're handed off to a finance manager, which tends to be somewhat of an awkward transition, and then they're handed back to the salesperson afterwards to go over the vehicle, and it sort of feels rushed from point to point to point. With us, you're going to spend all of your time with me. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to get to know your needs. I'm going to go over everything that you could need on the vehicle in addition to the vehicle. And then I'm going to give you a great delivery at the end and teach you how to use your new vehicle.
We want to create that sense of family. The Cavalli Way is to keep those customers coming back to us over and over and over again, because we make it fast and efficient for them, and it's not a process of a 4-hour process. Now we make it easy for them. They're able to go on our website. They're able to see, this is the vehicle I want. Okay, I've selected. They're able to do the create my deal. They're able to say, well, wow, I've created and I have complete control of what I want my deal to look like. Now I'm going to go in and now I'm going to do the process with just one person alone.
Well, in the traditional model, you're going to see a salesperson, a sales manager, a finance manager, possibly a delivery person. So you could have 4 or 5 different people. That's obviously taking up more of your time, where with the Cavalli Way, the single point of contact process, you're going to deal with one person throughout the whole process from start to finish.
To save time, your designated salesperson will bring your vehicle to your home or a place of your choice. All you have to do is make an appointment. For in-store appointments, we'll have the vehicle cleaned up and pulled up and ready with a product specialist.
Here, the single point of contact, you just have to talk to just one person and really get very personal with one person, and that one person is going to take you from point A, point B, C, and D, and all the way up to the delivery of the vehicle, and you're going to feel very, very comfortable.
We worked with one person. We didn't work with the team. Although they do work as a team, there were no games that were played.
She's Dutch, by the way. Oh. Tried to pause that there. Hold on. We just thought that.
So they do work as a team.
Here, the single point of contact from point A, and you're going to feel very, very now.
With the team. Although they do work as a team, there were no games that were played. He knew what we wanted and delivered on everything. Exceeded all expectations.
Salesperson, sales manager, finance manager thing for me was new. When I immigrated to the US, that was a new thing, and it has always driven me up a wall. It's driven me completely crazy because you talk to one person and then that person doesn't talk to you, but it's going to talk to someone else. and then they're sitting there in a glass box talking, and then you see them and they see you. You don't know what they're talking about though, so they could be talking about everything, and then they come out and they knock off something, you know, crazy off the price of this that doesn't even, it's not even relevant, and then they do that game 4 or 5 times a day, and that's the same thing. So you have a car buying experience, you waste half of your day, and then you walk out, you know, more nervous and more worked up than you came in. Here, you talk to your salesperson, he does everything.
Whether at home or in store, your single point of contact product specialists will provide a detailed, dynamic test drive that is catered to you. We'll walk you through our Create My Deal buying process. With complete transparency, utilizing market-based pricing algorithms will save you more time with an efficient transaction. You will also have the ability to review and purchase any protection packages desired for your new vehicle. Our fully transparent process allows you to complete the contract portion of your buying experience at home or in store. The contract will be automatically and electronically delivered to your email.
We project everything from an iPad onto a large TV screen, so the customer is able to see everything that the salesman is seeing. The customer sees it. They can interact with it. They can use the iPad themselves. They can change parameters. They can change anything they want to customize the deal exactly the way they want it.
Customers like it because, like I said, it's more efficient. You know, they get someone they trust. They get someone that they've built rapport with. It's more of a they understand the person. It's not a stranger that they have to continue meeting. So it's more of a, instead of dealing with a salesperson, it's like dealing with family at a certain point.
Our single point of contact salesperson will go over in detail all the new technologies in your new car and help you complete all personalization of your new vehicle. We will also introduce you to our service personnel and service department, so you'll know where to go for the maintenance of your new car.
We've been customers at Audi Lakeland since the day that it opened. At the other Audi dealership, I felt like I was just a number. I feel like a part of the family here. I feel more welcome.
Our customer service doesn't stop at the sale. We'll stay in contact to ensure you are completely satisfied, and we'll continue to send reminders about service and send out promotional emails to stay in touch.
When we say customer first, we mean it. The transparency and efficiency that this process brings to the car buying experience is second to none. Our consumers have already come back and given us that feedback. Having to deal with one person streamlines the process, makes it easier, quicker, and most importantly, effective.
We don't have to deal with anybody but our salesperson. And it's so much simpler than any other dealership experience I've ever had.
Find out why our sales process is the only way you'll ever want to buy a car again. The Cavalli Way with the Cavalli Auto Group.
So, my question is, what makes your dealership different? It may not be that message. Do you understand? They did do a few things. They showed different people of different ethnicities, both women and men. They included customers. They included what happens after you buy. You heard it over and over again, this is a better way. What's your better way? I just challenge you because I believe in the franchise model, I believe in the independent model, but competition is rising because of automation. So what was your strength? Brian, I'm in a good location, people come in and I have a really good sales team. What happens now when 10% or 20%, maybe eventually 30%, probably not more than that, start buying online? If anybody tells you in any short period of time that consumers are going to be buying their cars online, like 50%, they're absolutely smoking something illegal in most states in the US. Consumers love to come in and touch the car and test drive, and they have questions. But certain people, for certain purchases, will be transactional. And this is where we have to differentiate yourself. I was looking at some sites. Is anybody from this dealership here? This was just a dealership. And what I liked about this, right on the home page, the sales appointment actually allowed you to pick your sales associate for the appointment. We've done some testing in the US on this. When customers have a choice of picking a sales associate, and in the US, they would have the reviews for each salesperson that the customers have given. It actually starts the mental experience that I can pick somebody that is a really good or highly rated sales person. I like the fact. Now, you'll notice in a few minutes we're going to talk about these forms. I don't think this process is the right process anymore, but I do like the fact that they included a choice of who do you want to work with. Is there anybody from this company here? Okay. This had a video playing on the homepage, including a woman leaning over the front car, which was kind of odd, but something fashionable maybe. But I did like that on the home page, they listed some value propositions. The question is, are your value propositions unique? If your value proposition is, we're friendly, everyone says they're friendly, or we're nice. We'll give you a good price. Everyone's going to say that. The real question is what do consumers want? What do they value most? They value their time. Out of anything, they value their time. They want an awesome experience from the money that they invest in something, okay? And they want to be understood. They want to feel part of something really bigger than themselves. And the brands that you sell have great reputations. The question is, why should they choose you? This was another website, My Car. Again, the question is, just having it in text is not effective in reaching an impact. You need to get these why buy messages in video. What I also liked is the primary determination on the usability of a car, especially a used car, is the photos. If you've not done any testing, when you provide 360 spin photos of new or used car, your engagement rate goes up over 100%. And so if you haven't invested in a 360, this is the vehicle detail page for this car. And what was interesting is their call to action was really simple. It was one very prominent green button. We're going to talk about buttons. So do you have a brand promise? And then the question is do you make it easy for people to find you? Meaning, if you're out there saying great things about your brand, people go in to search. So I'd like to just remind you of a few things which I have not seen any Belgium dealer leverage yet. And I'm not even sure yesterday if we saw any Holland dealers leverage in your #1 free advertising resource, which is Google My Business. So when you look at traffic from Google My Business, now some of you, does anybody look at Google Analytics for your website? And how many people? Okay. So you should be able to see the traffic from Google My Business. It will only be visible is if you put something called the UTM tag on the button that says website in your Google My Business. If your button just says your website, you will not see the traffic from Google My Business. It comes in as organic traffic, okay? So let me just show you what I mean by that, because I don't have access to your Google My Business, but I will just, okay, so I need a name of somebody who's here. Your dealership name. Go ahead.
Cornetto Automotive.
Cornetto, like that?
Yeah, but with an E instead of an O, of the ice cream.
Something like that? Let's just say. Yeah. Cornetto Automotive?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not showing? Oh, okay, hold on, full screen. Is that you? Whoop. Oh, I have to change, hold on. I just have to change the focus, hold on. More lovely technology issues here today. Displays. Just display. Mirror display. Yes. Okay, there we go. So if I hover over the website button here, in the lower corner it just says cornette.be. So you cannot see how many people come to your website from Google My Business, right? So it should have a UTM tag. How do we create a UTM tag? Very simple. There is your website, but your website is really not -NL. Okay, so that's your website. So there's a free tool called the Google Campaign URL Builder, and you put in your website. The source is lowercase Google. The medium is lowercase organic. You cannot use capital letters. And your campaign name can be Google Business Profile. It's no longer called Google My Business. It's called the Google Business Profile. And then you can put for the content, website button. This is the link that you would copy and replace inside your Google My Business listing. It has to be Google, lowercase. It has to be organic, and then you can make up whatever you want to call it. You could do GMB or whatever. When you do that, you will find out that 50% of all your phone calls and 50% of all your lead forms come from that. Let's do one. Let's just look at one other dealership. Who wants to be a guinea pig? Brave, go ahead.
Willy.
Yeah.
Willy.
Willie?
W-I-L-L-Y, Toyota.
Willie Toyota?
Garage Willy, Toyota. But Willy with an I. An epsilon.
Oh, Willie, yeah. Willie Toyota? Is this one here? What city is it in?
Donkey. K-O-N-T-I.
And from November.
Let's see if we can find it. Garage Willie. Okay, Garage Willie. Thank you, Garage Willie. I put my no tag. On the bottom left, it just says garagewillie.be. Okay, so homework. Slideshow. We need to add a tag to the website button, and it's inside of your Google Business Profile. When you do that, your mouth will go, because instead of just having organic traffic, you'll be able to see what percentage of my traffic is from Google My Business, which is associated with people searching your brand or your location. And how does that listing come up? Well, there's three things: relevance, proximity, and activity. It's your number one online marketing friend, Google Business Profile. And if I use Google My Business, because that's what it's been called for 10 years, and I can't help myself sometimes. But now it's Google Business Profile. Relevance, that you've set it up right. There isn't a dealer I checked in this room, not every dealer, but the dealers I checked in this room, not one of them had it set up right. Not one. Proximity, you can't control that. Is the phone near your dealership? So if I say Audi dealer near me, or Audi dealer in, pick a city in Belgium, okay? You can't control that. And then activity, how often you're adding information to your Google Business Profile. Super important for independents, super important. Because the competition for used cars is important. But many independent car dealers don't invest in education. So those who do invest in education have a competitive edge. Now, here's an example. And I don't make my decks from other places. So when I'm in here, the building, when I first came, I did searches just so you understand. I understand you. You do not want a presentation for something in Holland or the US. So I just said, Mercedes dealer near me, a used car dealer near me, and BMW service near me. And you'll notice that under the ads, if someone was running an ad, we call this the 3-pack, okay? Those 3 listings are the Google business profile. What you may not know is why they show up in that order. And the answer to that is something called search engine optimization. The relevant content on your website, and in conjunction with if your Google business profile is set up properly, together can give you a competitive edge to get to the top of the box. Now, if a consumer types Willie's Garage, 100% of the time, your Google My Business listing will show up because it's unique, right? How many people are called Willie's Garage? If you are a Van Mosel store, depending on how many Van Mosel stores are in the local market, if you said Van Mosel BMW, and if there's only one Van Mosel BMW nearby, it will show 100% of the time. If there's 2 Van Mosel BMW stores nearby, then it might show this as a pack, okay? Now, what's important to understand is that, for example, in this middle one, Denning Cars, Jack, I don't even know what that is, but notice the Euro Car Center had 55 reviews and a 4.5 stars, where Denning Cars had 1 review, the other one was junk. Now, if I'm a used car dealer, I'm super happy. That means my competition is stupid. First of all, it's sad that that person only had 55 reviews. I mean, how many cars does a used car dealer sell each year times the number of years they're in business, right? Like 50, like if you're not over 100 reviews, you're not even in the game in the automotive industry. But I was surprised how many dealers in the Belgian market had like between 100 and 200 or 100 and 300, but they're part of big organizations that some should be over 1,000. But I share this because when I do a search in the US, you'll see how Google business profiles should be set up. And of course, I wrote the book on this, not as an egotistical way, but I actually wrote a book when Google announced that franchise dealers should have at least a sales and service business profile, and ideally, sales, service, and parts. Sub-departments. Now, if you have a body shop, that would be number 4. If you have a car rental division, that would be 5. Now notice, and I know the screen may be a little, so I'm just going to read this. It says departments here. And it says Parts Center at Team Toyota and Service Center at Team Toyota. Those are automatic hyperlinks to the business profile for that department. Isn't it true at your dealerships that service has different hours than sales? Is that true? Yes or no? That's the primary reason why Google decided that they had to give each department its own listing. Doesn't sales and service have enough things that they sell that demand their own separate business listing? You'll see in a minute why. Those departments are super powerful because once you tag your website button, so you can see it in analytics, every business person in this room will say one thing: how do I get more of that traffic? And the answer is by finally promoting service and parts as well. What does that look like? You may not know this. This is not a technical class. I have to be careful how close I get. This is not a technical class. How to fix it. But I think Paul has, I don't know, do we ever translate hyperlocal into Dutch?
No, we have many articles.
Okay, so we have many articles that Paul can share with you. You may not know this, but Every Google business profile allows 10 business categories. I inspected some of yours, to my disappointment. The good news is there's a free tool, you'll see in a minute, that you can plug into your Chrome browser that will allow you to look at any businesses, Google My Business listing, to see what categories they've set. Meaning you can kind of chuckle. Yeah, GMB Spy, look at that. So, 10. Notice that this Toyota dealer is we do not have common multi-brand dealers in the same physical address in the US, okay? We'll have a Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, meaning a Stellantis store, but Fiat would typically be in another building at a different address. That's just US. In the US, I want you to think about if you're a BMW store, you're a Volvo store, you're an Audi store, your primary category is the first one, and then notice, you car accessory, you're a car dealer, you're a car finance, you're car leasing, you represent a car manufacturer, you are a motor vehicle dealer, you're a truck dealer, you're a used car dealer, you're a used truck dealer. Isn't that true for every franchise dealer here in Belgium? Tell me what you don't do. You do all those things. Meaning, you may be an Audi dealer, but you may have a used... By the way, there's no SUV category. So if you say, we don't sell trucks, yes you do. You sell SUVs. Now, for service, look at this. If you have a service center, the primary category is auto repair shop or car repair and maintenance. But do you change brakes? Do you do oil? Do you sell tire? Oh, hold on, Brian. I must be missing something, Brian, because I don't know what those 10 categories do. You know what those 10 categories do? They represent a bucket of thousands of keywords. So if someone's searching BMW tires, BMW tire sale, BMW oil change, BMW brake service, BMW transmission, if you have, listen, if you have the categories and you have matching content on your website, if your website doesn't mention BMW tires, if your website doesn't mention diesel engine repair, you miss some of the beauty in a competitive market. Like in Antwerpen, it's a pretty big city, I assume. I'm sure there's a lot of competition, independent dealers, independent service, and franchise service. And then parts. You're an auto parts store. You may have not thought of yourself as an auto parts store, but you are. Auto body part supplier, yeah, right? You're a Mercedes dealer. You sell Mercedes genuine factory parts to local auto body shops. At least that's what happens in the US. Auto parts market, auto spring shop, car battery store. You can put tires here, truck parts supplier. So when I just looked at, go ahead, question.
Does it matter because now it's all in English? Of course, here it's all Dutch or French, but mostly Dutch. You did search near. Does Google automatically translate to Dutch? Or
yes, absolutely. So like in Canada, they spelled tire wrong. They use a Y. I don't know why, like in Canada. Who came up with that? That's not a tire. It's an I.
Because you had the used car dealer near me, but it showed the Euro car shop or whatever.
Google does the local translation. Okay, because the business categories, occasions, right? Are they used cars? Is that correct here?
Yeah.
Okay, so if in your Google My Business listing, if it's set to Dutch, it won't say used car dealer. It might be say auto occasions or something. Okay. So you do have different hours. Here's one of the funny things. Here's another reason why Google did it. In the US, service normally opens earlier than sales, like 7 o'clock in the morning. Dealers who only had sales, they open at 9 o'clock normally. 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, someone needs to drop off their car because their battery's dead, and it says closed. The consumer says, oh, I guess I can't take it to the BMW dealer, I'll go to the independent service center. But the BMW dealer was open, but Google said it was closed. Why? Because there was only one listing, it was for sales. So when you have these different hours like this does, you may say, well, that's not a big thing. Oh, it's a big thing if somebody comes at 4 o'clock and service closed at 3. It's a big thing when someone is disappointed. Now, here's some things that are going to be coming to Belgium and Holland, but not yet. Meaning if you try to Google this dealer, Google will show you something different. Isn't that funny? When I Googled Paragon Honda, Brian Benstock has spoken before, what you see here in Belgium is not what's really happening. Google actually shuts down, doesn't want to show you this, but this is very important for independent dealers and franchise dealers, is you will be able to feed your live inventory into Google My Business. So your Google My Business listing will not only just be a directory system to get people. When you click on those cars, actually it comes up with a little mini VDP, the ability to chat. No commerce yet. And then a link to the dealer's web page for that specific car. Now, why did Google do that? Follow the money. Now, in the US, you don't have this yet, we have position 0 vehicle ads. Position 0 vehicle ads. And this feed, you will see Carvana there. Vista Volkswagen is actually a franchise dealer. Cars.com, a national listing site like Toyota, huh? Carvana, Cars.com. Okay. So dealers and dealer holding groups will be able to be in position 0 for Google searches based on live inventory.
Well, based on click, I pay to click.
Pay per click. With in the US, there is a minimum spend right now, which is low for US standards, which is $2,000 a month. But that's nothing for a normal dealer in the US.
Well, you need to program that in your Google ad account. So you say, I want to spend this for €2 a click.
Yes. So this is a pretty big thing. And let me tell you, it's the best performing ad unit in the United States on Google ad campaigns. It's a big thing. So for the dealer holding groups here who have a little bit of power, for the independents that maybe are bigger, you need to be talking to your Google rep. There is actually a form, if you reach out to Paul will send it to you. There's actually an inquiry form where you can request to be notified when this feature is available in Belgium. It's a Google open form requesting live inventory on your Google business profile, okay? Meaning maybe you'll get into the beta program. So what does it look like? You have 3 Google business profiles, each with its own hours, each with its own reviews, each with its own products, each with its own services. What does this do? It gives you 3x the power of local search. Now, if you've never done this before, you should do this. Do you know what percentage of the visitors to your website are for service versus sales? Has anybody done that little? What do you think it is about?
It's 37%.
I love you. Is that okay to say here in Belgium? Okay, good. There's like love.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah, good. He said, you have to be careful what to say. I was going to say between 30 and 40%, depending on the marketing, like if they're doing organic content for the different services, it's that important. That's why when dealers buy their own name in Google search, which I'm not a fan of, but normally the variable ops or the newer used car department pays for that. And I know this is not a political statement here, but if I'm the newer used car manager and I have a budget, I want that budget to help me sell more cars. Service is important, but that's someone else's problem. over 70–80% of those phone calls are for service. You know, you buy your own name, yeah, you can pay all you want for whatever you want, but it's not a sales campaign. Typically, those conversions, those phone calls are all for service. So, that's a strange slide. Oh, there we go. So, eventually, dealers who understand this, when people buy a car, you text the link to the customer while they're still in the showroom and ask them to post a review, and you send the link to your sales listing. And when someone completes a service with your dealership and they're at the cashier, and the cashier obviously, or maybe the advisor says, how was your experience today at Van Mossel BMW? Oh, it was excellent. Hey, would you help us out? We just created a Google review site for our service department. And if you had a great experience, would you just take a moment here if I texted you the link? Would you post a review? Many of you in this room that are doing a good amount of service should easily be able to get 30% of your monthly transactions to post in real time a review. You should have a year from now over 1,000 reviews. Imagine what that looks like in local search when one BMW dealer has 40 reviews and you have 1,000. What's the jump ball look like? And then, of course, same with parts. Now, parts is a little harder. I don't expect a lot of reviews on parts because you're selling wholesale, maybe to local body shops or mechanics, plus do-it-yourself customers, but getting 10 or 20 reviews on your parts listing is not a problem. Now, let's have some fun. My ability to pronounce certain names in this part of the world is a little challenge. If they were all Italian names, I'd have no problem. But there's this tool, it's a free tool. You can load it in your Chrome browser called GMB Spy. It was made by a friend of mine, George Nenny. And so I just went to this Mercedes dealer, and this is what you would normally see. And I clicked on the pin on the map, and the primary category is Mercedes-Benz dealer. Secondary category is car dealer. But aren't you a used car dealer? And aren't you a used truck dealer? Aren't you a truck dealer? And don't you provide car financing? You with me? 10. So this dealer is missing 8 out of 10. Which means, listen, they're missing out on thousands of additional positions of putting their dealership in front of a local consumer who has some interest in something about a Mercedes. This is automotive, and in this particular example, they're doing what was common in the US, which was the mix of some sales and service because they didn't know that they should have a separate service. So they are a car dealer, an Audi dealer, an auto body shop, auto repair, car repair, Seat, and Skoda, and Volkswagen. Now, what do you do if you're a multi-brand location? My answer is pick the brand that is driving most of the sales. So what would you imagine this dealer would be selling the most of? Audi? So I might put Audi as the primary, and then Skoda and Volkswagen and Seat, there. And then I would take out auto body, and I'd make my own auto body shop listing. And then I would put auto repair, car maintenance in the service one. And then I would fill up the sales one with more sales categories. This is another BMW store. Very similar, right? Just primary is right. There's nothing wrong with that. But this listing wouldn't be showing up for any used car or used truck searches. This is exciting to anybody. It's really exciting to me. Because when you look at the traffic quality that comes from Google My Business, it's the hottest one. And then here is, I think this is independent dealer and motor vehicle dealer, auto market, used car dealer. So I don't think motor vehicle dealer is probably the best one. I would put used car dealer, and then used truck dealer, right? Then motor vehicle dealer and such. These were obviously translated into English, whatever the categories really are. But remember that whether the independent does service or not on the vehicles, if they do, or some level of service, hey, we do tires, we do oil change, something light, then they could have a service listing as well. So you could see that everyone here could benefit. So the categories, Paul has an article I'm sure he can give you, but does anybody sell recreational vehicles? Anyone? Anyone? Okay.
What's
Yeah, like a camper, you know, tow trailer, fifth wheel, whatever you call them. I put them in there because recently there's been an explosion from COVID of sales in the RV industry. Less people are traveling via plane, so they're buying campers, they're traveling around the United States. But I put these here as an example of some things. If you want to take a picture, you of course can take a picture, but you could contact Paul. Here's the key. Leave here today with this one thing. The best traffic to your website that has the highest percentage of real shoppers comes from Google My Business. The yellow pages, pagina giallo, or whatever, as we would say in the US, the yellow pages was where people looked up your dealership, and of course those are important. Now I'm going to challenge you with something else which may seem foreign to you, but the reason why I started with the book is because some of you are going to say, I can't do this. Which is fine. You're being the prosecutor. Some of you may be the preacher. Brian, we're a big company. We're successful. We have a sales process. It works. Do not challenge us. Yes, that could be a good idea for someone, but not for us. Because we're perfect. And some of you may shake your head and say, that's a great idea. When you go back, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to push too hard and change things. You'd be the politician. I made Brian feel good. I said, yes, I'm going to consider this, and then I change. What do I mean by real-time retelling? If somebody walked into your showroom, would you treat them like this? Somebody walked in. Do you work at a car dealership? You're independent. Who's a franchise dealer? Give me. What brand do you sell? Toyota. Okay, Toyota. So if I walk into your store, does the receptionist say, "Welcome to Willie's Toyota"? Here's a clipboard. Fill out your information. Go sit in the chair. We'll get to you in about 30 minutes. You say, Brian, that's stupid. We would never do that. But we already know that people will make decisions about what car to buy online. They'll maybe even make a decision on which dealership to do business with online. So why do we treat the online people like that? Because some of you in this room still feel that the online shopper doesn't deserve your best. The best only happens if they come in to the store. And I know everyone is aware, because you're human in this age, you're addicted to your phone, you're messaging on your phone, you're making decisions on your phone, you're ordering on your phone, and yet, if somebody comes to your website, we're still acting as if this is acceptable. What do I mean by that? Is this anybody's website here? Hi guys, how you doing? You feel, yeah, feeling really special until now. But honestly, your website has some good qualities, but follows the playbook of everyone else in the world, almost, which is the online customer does not need to be served now. we would rather chase them when they've moved on to something else. But we'll serve them if they come in because that's what we do. But not in our virtual showroom, because our virtual showroom isn't real. We really don't want to differentiate our dealership from everyone else in the market. So let's talk about the design. It's pretty clear that the primary call to action is book now, okay? And I'm going to say that all the other buttons are white, so you're almost close to perfection where you have a single clear call to action, but the button should not be red, it should be green, because it's not a color violator. Your website is red themed, okay? So you would want your primary call to action button to be the color violator, and green is tested the best color for a primary call to action. You have multiple calls to action. You have I want more info, print, and part. Those are secondary calls to action, and I like the fact that they're equally weighted. So if a customer says, and how do you say the last name of it? The business? Verschuren? Or something like that? Okay, something, yeah. Verschuren, or something like that. Okay, so do you have an online sales process? You know what I'm going to say? Yes, you do. It's very clear what you want the consumer to do next. So what happens when you click on these things? So you say, okay, you want to reserve this car. It's going to cost you $500 to reserve it. That was pretty abrupt. So, woo, I wasn't even ready for that. And then fill out your information and we'll chase you. Now, how many people are in sales on a typical day at your store? 2 people. 2 people selling? Okay. Are there any parts of the day where you're not selling? Like, would you say there's an hour or 2 every day where you would love someone to come in, but they don't? It happens. Does anybody know where that's coming from? Singing part. You said there was no singing. Is that? Oh yeah, we don't need that. Okay, so it's not from me. Oh, is that someone singing? Is that what doggy singing sounds like? Okay, it must be from the whole system here. Okay. So, let's look at the other button. Form. And let's stop there. Now, if I told you during the day only 10 people click that button, one of those buttons, over the course of a day, and when you were there, would you be able to talk with them in real time via messaging on your phone? Do you think that's possible with 2 people? What do you think? You better say sure. Otherwise, you better get out of business. Because you would love to have 10 more people walk in the door per day, would you? If I said, I'm a great marketer, I'm going to get 10 more people a day to come into your showroom, would you say, no, Brian, only send 3? What would you say? I hope you wouldn't say, just send me 3. If I said to the Willys team, I'm going to send 10 people a day, would you take those 10 people? You would, right? You wouldn't be afraid that you wouldn't be able to handle that, would you?
Yes, but still.
You would still do it, right?
Absolutely.
What if you could double the number of sales opportunities you had per day? Would you do it? Would you change your model? Let's take a look at Cornette. There we are. Okay, primary call to action is clear, not the color violator, right? It's staying within the theme. I want that green. There's request a quote, order a car, I want to test drive, to ring, and send this to email. So there's numbers of call to actions, but the primary one, meaning for your business, do you have an online sales process? And your online sales process says yes. If someone comes to this car, I think the natural next step is for them to make an appointment. Now, request a quote, what does that mean? Obviously, I translated. Because you told me that I have an advantage, discount, and there's the car. What is the request a quote in your mind? Is this a game to get a lead? Okay, so yes, there we go. In the U.S., they'll have something like, well, I think they're playing around. Request a quote might be, get e-price. Of course, it's the same price. Or get today's price. I'm like, why do you do that? We want leads. How about just talking to the person? And so, request a quote. Well, the quote's already there. Maybe before they want to do an appointment, maybe they want to ask you a question. Right, but you've buried that. So the question is, do you have an online sales process? Now, when we do ask that online sales process, this was really cool to see. This is very close to exactly what we want. This is an automated workflow where the consumer, instead of filling out a form for an appointment, can have conversational commerce. Now, the tools here in Holland and Belgium are not as strong today as they've emerged in the US, but when you move a static form to a conversation, you can double conversion. Let me say that again. Choice. Form or conversational commerce, double conversion. Now, simple things like scheduling service or scheduling a test drive, this type of technology works very well. Not as perfect as if the team from Willys, as soon as somebody hit that button, the chat started, hey, we're here to help you schedule an appointment, and it asked them for their first name and last name. Simultaneously, the 3 salespeople at Willys get a text. Someone's on our website right now, scheduling an appointment. Then one of your salespeople can jump in, stop the automation, and start talking. Or if you're busy, you let the automation take over. But what if it's a question about financing or payments or cost, right? Those bots don't work very well like that. That's why we have forms. In now over 100 dealers that I've tested this, when you take the button and move it to real-time messaging, at least doubles the number of consumers you are talking with per month. Talking to, not chasing, talking to. It takes away the need for a BDC to follow up on your own website leads during normal hours of the day. You still need a lead follow-up process for leads from AutoScout or Trader Hans or OEM leads. But when you want to go to something else a little bit more advanced, you're smart, you know that the automated chat does not handle, but notice what you're doing. I want to buy, I want to finance, and then you fill out a form. What I'm saying is if you get, do you know how many of those a month you get? About how many of those finance leads, whatever?
At the moment, about 6.
6 a month.
Yeah.
So you should be, based on that traffic pattern, getting 20. Now, what would that do to your business, Willys, if you got twice as many real consumers talking to you? Because they went to your website after they went to the other Toyota dealer who had forms. They go to yours because they didn't want to wait, and they go, maybe Willys has it, and you start talking with these people in real time. So when you have these forms, I know everyone's thinking, but during normal business hours, why not changing the workflow from form to conversation? Now, of course, other things that you did, you had this, and I love that. is anybody from this dealer here? Hey, how are you? By the way, this is Joseph's Technicolor Dream Coat. This has every color known to man on this. And by the way, we had a problem this morning. The website would not work in Chrome. Okay, and I identified one of the problems, but Paul had the problem, I had the problem, and then we had to go to Safari, and the website worked fine. So I need you to work with your website developer, because what we got was this message, okay, and it was hanging on this. In the bottom left corner, your website developer is using a third party. Now, I don't know if their service was down or their service is having a problem with Chrome, but the website worked perfectly on Safari.
We're aware of the problem, which is not a good excuse not to work.
That's good. Okay, good. Well, let's fix that. Okay. Now, let's look at this. So, what's the primary call to action? So the website is of a yellow thing. The price is in yellow. It's very clear. I love the stacked discounts. So the question is what do you want the consumer to do? Now there's two options here. And obviously you already know now that the primary call to action should be green and it should be first. The other buttons should not be colors, or they should all be the same color. In this particular case, you may decide to keep it in the yellow theme if you had multiple buttons. Okay? But again, let me just go through this. There was the form, and yet with another color palette, again, if the next button is, we should always be using green as the directional of where we want to go. So the question here is, for this site, of the two buttons, the pink button and the green button, what do you think you want? What do you think is the natural priority for the customer?
The first one.
The first one. Okay, so neemt in opti or something like that, right? Which translates to?
Take an option on this car.
Okay, so yeah, so reservation, you're interested in this car. Could you imagine, do you know how many approximate leads a month you get from that?
400 a month.
Okay, great. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Less than 40% of the people who click that button fill it out. So there's to be another 600. There's over 1,000 people. There's over 1,000 people a month who click that button. Now, as a business person, you have to say, why aren't they filling out? Because they don't want to do business that way. That's just the fact. And it's worldwide, by the way. I've tested this all around the world. Less than 40% of people, when presented with a button that pops up a form, because no other retail really does that, they just don't fill out the form. Now imagine what that would mean to your business and your marketing if, so we're talking about handling 1,000 engagements a month divided by, I don't know, 25 days. That's 40 people a day that are interested in taking an option, but only 400 fill it out. So it's over 1,000. And you'll see that if you're tagging in analytics. You say, Brian, that's a lot. 40 messages? I would have to, during the business day, take 40 messages, and I would be like, I'd take them all day long, because what you're doing is spending 2 or 3 times the labor chasing them after they fill out, but you're only chasing 400. You're not talking to the other 600. You say, well, Brian, that would be hard. Don't get me mad. Because if you had twice as many people tomorrow show up in that showroom, you would figure out a way to accommodate them. Would it mean maybe you hire someone whose sole job is during the day to work these messages because you do a test and you're like, these are real people. They really, like, these are not bots clicking my website. These are real people with questions. And I got a person who loves messaging. I mean, they just love messaging. They're really good with messaging. And I'm doubling my appointments. Every dealer who's moved from forms on their primary calls to action to messaging has doubled their showroom appointments. You just have to trust me that it's possible and to rethink if the OEMs are going to change the way we make money, which is going to happen, and we fight back and come up with a balance, it's still going to mean, how do I, as a single independent, or as Willie's Toyota, how do I get more of the market share? And I'm going to say, you need to meet the consumers where they are and treat them seriously as if they walked into your showroom. And this was another, form. So you have to look at yourself and say to yourself, am I part of the problem? Am I just doing what every Toyota dealer or every independent is doing? What have I innovated? Now, what does it look like in the US? This is a client of mine, three call to actions. You might say, Brian, where is the trade-in tool? It's part of the Fast Pass. That green button can buy a car. It will do the finance approval, real-time approval, real-time trade evaluation with a firm offer on the trade-in of the car based on the information it will give it. Ask us a question or schedule a test drive. What else could a consumer want? So I recorded a little video of what that looks like so we didn't waste time. So go to the website, click new inventory. Okay. Just pick a car. Notice 3 buttons on the search page to match the VDP. There it is. So if I wanted to schedule a test drive, I think that's what I picked. It immediately pops up with the calendar. Pick a date. Okay, it's going to ask me my name. Now this particular workflow doesn't break it out. I like when they ask first name, last name. They put a mini form in here. And of course I don't want them calling me, so I just put in the traditional fake number that everyone in the US knows is fake.
Is that a fake?
Yeah. And I pick a time. And that's booked right in the DMS. Boom. So the slots that were available, no. So what did that look like afterwards? I also got an email saying, hey, thanks for your thing. And if I click that green button, it would go right back to that whole session and show the entire conversation with the appointment and everything that was there. Now, of course, the system will also send a reminder to the customer. This is another Honda dealer. They're following my advice, but the general manager still likes to have more buttons than I like. But that Gubagoo is the Canadian digital retailing company that will do everything. That will evaluate the trade. It will approve them for lease finance with real credit and basically reserve the car for that person to come in and sign. The trade value is everyone wants to know what their car is worth. Remember, most people in the U.S., even if they're leasing the car, they own the car. And their residual value is much lower than the actual market price. So most people on leases for the entire life, when they turn the car is not worth more, it's worth less. Now, people at the end of their lease are getting $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 in cash towards their next vehicle because the used car price is that much higher. Very strange time. Schedule a test drive is a conversation. Get e-price is a conversation. Credit score leaves and goes to another page. On the mobile, they add the green click to call because it's a mobile device. I'm not a big fan of that. I do like the phone icon or a phone number that's clickable. It doesn't have to be a button, but that's what this dealer decided to do. Their website is very, very clean, and you'll notice they have a clear sales process because the sales process is the green button. And so in January, I got them to move from forms to conversations. This data will be exactly the same for you because people in Belgium or Holland are no different than people anywhere else who are buying a car. They have a question, they want an answer. You're either going to serve them now or chase them later. It's very simple. Serve now, chase later. Brian, we're not prepared to serve now. Get over yourself, and fix that problem. Because it means you could double your physical appointments in the showroom. And that should be music to your financial ears. And if it isn't, you've got to get out of the business. Because if you don't, listen, lower your operating costs, be more efficient with every opportunity. Stop counting leads. I love the fact that you have 400 leads, and thanks for sharing that. But I'm pissed off that you have 1,000 opportunities. And we were so focused on the 400 leads, let's do a really good job. And then we're going to beat people over the head to call those people and email those people, but those people have already moved on to something else. I want to look at what can I do with 1,000 clicks? That's just on that one button, let alone the other button. There could be another 600 clicks on them. It's like, oh, watch, I'm going to move from passive retailing to real time. So what does it look like? In Google Analytics, their buttons are tagged, so when someone clicks on a button, it sends that click into Google Analytics to measure. So in the month of February, they had 3 unique events. Just so you understand, it's a unique person. They had 333 and click on the Get E-Price and 291 to schedule a test drive. The schedule a test drive does the automatic workflow. So really, just like yours would like start the offer or reserve or, that's your next step. Think of maybe Get E-Price as kind of equivalent of that. And 195 people clicked on the retailing tool to actually start physically working the deal. So call that 200 and 335. That's on the SRP, the search results page with multiple cars. When people got to the actual vehicle detail page in that month, 250 people decided to click on Get E-Price there. So it took the dealer time and training to get their salespeople to care. Does anybody have that problem? Getting salespeople to actually care? Like following up on leads, answering people. And by the way, we all know how to text, so please don't text somebody, thank you, Mr. Brian Pasch, for... When you're texting, you're just like, hey, I want to know about this car. Great. What do you want to know? Like, just be natural, right? So before they were using forms, the number of conversations they had from their chat tool, because someone would have to click on the chat tool to do the chat, was 92. In January, it was 132. Then in the middle of January, we started to turn on the buttons that were forms slowly to conversations. In May, based on the pace here, so the February was kind of a kind of trial month. In March, they're going to have over 200, and by May, they'll have over 400. Now, here's the key. If you were counting leads, you would be super happy that you got 132. Because you never saw it as opportunities. See, your marketing, your location, the association with Mercedes or BMW brought people to your website, and we were so obsessed with counting leads and then also equally angry on how long it took to get these people in the show because they moved on. So operational efficiency changes when you, during the day, with your trained sales associate, decide to serve, not chase. Now, what happens after hours? Great question. The chat platforms that we have in the US will automate that workflow. Say, hey, we're here to help. We're here to reserve, whatever your call to action was. Gets their first name, last name, starts talking with them. Most consumers at that point don't really know if it's a real person or not, which is fine because you get their information, and then the chat bot will say, the sales team is currently, the sales office is currently closed. but first thing in the morning, we're going to pick up the conversation and message with you. So at nighttime, instead of a form, which we already know less than 40% filled out, 80% of the people will complete the bot flow. That's a big uptick. Forms or conversational commerce. Forms, old school, we've been doing that since 1995 on the other websites. Messaging is what we do every day as part of our culture. So another way that we can reduce labor is through automation. And of course, the tools, this is a tool that we saw, I think this is the same tool, right? Same company, Paul, is it?
No, it's auto chat.
Yeah, and this is auto chat too, yeah. So Van Molso uses it, and we had a little example of this worked out in real time. So this is the automation workflow. This works perfect for a service appointment. It works perfect after hours for sure, for schedule a test drive. But all I'm telling you is that be bold enough to say forms are horrible. Just be bold enough and then say, I'm willing to test. But I'm going to get my team involved and I'm going to get the buy-in. And, you know, this way you have a workflow that could actually work. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to share with you that's really cool. In the US, booking a service appointment by phone is still a challenge. Things go to voicemail. Depending on staffing, people get busy. Does that happen here in Belgium when people call for a service appointment? Do they have a hard time getting someone on the phone? There's no problems. Look at that. You guys have the perfect phone process, huh? You telling me if I called any of your stores right now, 100% of the time, I wouldn't go to voicemail. I would actually talk to somebody. That's what you believe?
95%. They're all calling at the same time.
Yes.
95%.
95%. So one of the...
I don't agree.
Okay.
Not for your specific garage, but we have brand dealers which we call for service often, and we have companies where we know 1 out of 2 times they don't pick up their phone.
Yeah. So here's a cool thing that if you have a BDC or something is going to go to voicemail, you could use automation now. And this comes back to the audio. Let's see if I can use this. I don't know if they...
Are you calling about the 2020 Chevrolet Equinox?
Okay, so let me go back.
Yes.
Okay, so in order
Okay. Could you please state the approximate mileage of your vehicle?
Hold on, quit that. It happens quickly, so I just want you to know how cool this is. So the person calls the dealer. The phone system knows what number the person's calling from. Okay? Instantly does what we call a data dip into their DMS. Instantly. And knows that this customer only owns one car from them. Okay? You wouldn't have known that, but I'm saying you, the caller ID and the software does the data dip. Now, listen to the call.
I'm your digital assistant, Stella. I can book, change, or cancel appointments. How can I help you today?
Oil change appointment.
Are you calling about the 2020 Chevrolet Equinox?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please state the approximate mileage of your vehicle?
15,500.
Okay. Please state your first name and then your last name.
John.
Thank you. Before we proceed, do you require any other services for your vehicle?
No.
Okay, let's book your appointment. Will you be dropping off your vehicle?
Yes.
Please wait while I check our schedule. I have an appointment available for Monday, January 3rd at 7:45 a.m. for drop-off. Would that be okay for you?
Yes.
Would you like to confirm your appointment for Monday, January 3rd at 7:45 a.m. for drop-off?
Yes.
We have successfully scheduled your appointment for Monday, January 3rd at 7:45 a.m. to drop off your vehicle. To help improve our service, we would like to get your feedback. How would you rate this call on a scale of 1 to 10?
10.
Of course, 10. It's a demo.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about this call?
You did an excellent job.
Thank you for calling and for your feedback. Goodbye.
So we have dealers in the U.S. that are booking 300 to 400 service appointments a month using 0 labor. And 80% of the feedback scores are either a 9 or 10. Now, if you try to call a U.S. service department, over 50% of the time, you'll be put on hold or put in voicemail. And it's just an example. You're saying, how do we serve our customers better? What if people are calling you at night and they want to schedule service? Couldn't that help? How about a website button that says, schedule your service 24/7? You see what I'm saying? Rethink what modern retailing is, and that will make a difference. We are staying on schedule. I just have 2 things that challenge you on. Yes. So when we think of marketplace portals in the U.S., we have Cars.com, we have Auto Trader, Car Gurus, Edmunds, 4 primary. You have Trader Hans, you have Auto Scout, you have Gaspedal. What else is big here in Facebook Marketplace? So sometimes people look at one marketplace as better than the others, and I don't make any money recommending one platform over another. But I want to share with you what's happening in the U.S., and I'm challenging the team at Trader Hans to rethink what they could do for the dealers in Belgium to add additional value, especially for the larger dealer holding groups that normally are doing their own Google advertising, their own Facebook advertising, because they feel that's very effective. I mentioned to you that Audi of Lakeland, that was Gino with the beard in the video, normally have 75 to 100 new cars in stock. Would you agree that the number of vehicles in stock here in Belgium are lower than normal, would you say? Yeah? So isn't it true then that you're disappointing more customers maybe than ever before? I know you don't think of it this way, but if somebody goes to Gino's website today, there's very little selection that they actually like. You just have to understand, I'm thinking always where my customer's mind is. If my customer's mind is, I'm going to go to the dealer that has the car that I want, then if inventory is lower than normal, it creates a problem. So consumers always get what they want. They do. They figure a way. And so they go to a site like Cars.com, which gets about 28 million people a month. And notice there's 517 new Audis. More than ever in this supply-constrained world, marketplace websites have more value than ever before. But still, some dealers think them as only a lead source or a listing source. And so the marketplace websites in the US decided to do something very bold that they never did before. And it's not necessarily here in Belgium or Holland yet. What they said to them is like, no one comes to Cars.com if they're looking for shoes or a camper or a blouse or cigars. Same thing with Trader Hans. When they click on autos and they start looking at cars, they're not there because they're not interested in cars. They're there. And you hope that they see your car, but here's the key. the fact that they're in a marketplace website shows clear intent. They're in the market for a vehicle. Would you agree? It's not by accident. Do we agree? Are we all in agreement? Because I'd like to hear any disagreement. If somebody goes to autoscout.be and spends 5 or 10 minutes there, were they bored? Like, hey, I don't want to watch the soccer highlights. I just want to go to Autoscout. No. So what if you could, as a dealer holding group, as an independent dealer, leverage that audience for your store? So, well, that's impossible. It's possible. Because when I go to Trader Han, I see, for example, and I look for 2022, there was 127 franchise dealer Audis. That's a lot. So people are coming here looking for Audis. If I'm an Audi dealer and that customer is in my market, whether they looked at my car or not, if they're an Audi shopper and they live in my market, that person's valuable to me. Would you agree? Would you agree? Some of you are sleeping. Okay, so can you just hit that guy in the back? Okay, so what if you looked at the portals not just as a classified listing place, but as an audience of first-party shoppers that's the best in the market? Well, Brian, I use Facebook, and they have the ability to target in-market shoppers. Well, how did they get that? Well, Facebook won't tell us. I use Google, and I can do an audience, in-market shoppers for cars. How did Google get that? They won't tell me. But if I told you I had an audience of people who went to Trader Han auto section, all of you would understand how that audience was made. In fact, you would say that's a pretty clean audience, because the auto section or Auto Scout or Gospel, there's only cars there. So in the US, it started with cars.com, where if somebody was on the cars.com portal, just think of Trader Hans or Auto Scout or whatever, when they left, they would be followed on Facebook with retargeting. Chew on that for a minute. Hold on. If somebody goes and sees one of my cars on cars.com, I can follow that person with the car of mine that they looked at on Google, YouTube, Facebook. Now, some of you should be saying, that would be the best targeted dollar of investment I spent on Facebook or Google, because they showed clear intent. I'm not guessing. Remember, the problem with marketplace is, depending on where people are in the marketplace, there can be aspirational buyers or accidental buyers, although Facebook Marketplace is very effective for all our clients. But in order for Facebook Marketplace to work, you should just know that you have to have a messaging first culture at the dealership. You need to be able to respond to people in real time when they're in Facebook Marketplace. So Cars.com said, well, we shouldn't limit this just to Facebook and Google. What about video advertising? So think about this. This is the pitch that Cars makes, and I'm suggesting, yeah.
Advertising. The American automobile industry's #1 most effective way to waste money. In the old days, manufacturers and local dealerships would use newspapers, mail, radio, and linear television to broadcast their advertising to everyone, even though only 5% of households are in the market for a new vehicle at any given time. That's a great way to waste 95% of our budget, Tommy. Fast forward to internet times and the promise of digital advertising, with its precision targeting and ROI attribution, eliminating all the waste from automotive advertising. Actually, I'll level with you. Most of that targeting is really just guessing. Big advertising platforms will tell you they know everything about a consumer, but they don't know the only thing that matters. Are they actually in the market for a car? These big advertising platforms use modeled lookalike audiences to spend your money on people who demographically look like car shoppers, and then water down and bloat that audience so there's more people to spend your money on. At Cars.com, we had a crazy idea.
What if you could stop guessing and start only targeting people you know are actively shopping for a vehicle? Because we actually know. We're Cars.com. Over 25 million people come to Cars.com each month, and they're not looking for toasters. They're looking for cars. It's a 100% pure in-market audience, and 75% of them haven't decided on a make, model, or dealer yet. For over 20 years, we've helped dealers put their inventory, brand, and reputation in front of this pure in-market audience. And as we saw our partners wasting money on this targeting guessing game, we knew we had to step in and help. Introducing Fuel in-market video, powerful omni-channel advertising, from small screen social to big screen OTT, only targeted to local shoppers you know are in market because they were just on Cars.com. It's pure, exclusive audience data that you don't share with anyone, because only one dealer per territory can access it. That exclusivity protects and grows your market share by making you the dominant brand in each zip code you claim. And whether you choose to run your own spot, choose from our library of proven winners, or make something custom with our amazing creative team, we'll put the message in front of your in-market audience that will drive them to your business. And that's it. Advertise to people you know are looking for their next vehicle. Show them why they should buy one from you, and dominate your market by being the only one who can. It's Fuel in-market video, the future of automotive advertising.
So what if you were able to not only just list on Twitter, but say, hey, the people who looked at my cars, I want to follow them on YouTube or Facebook or Google. Wouldn't that be a powerful change to the marketing strategy?
I'd pay more for that data than actually paying for listing on the
Exactly. Right. And so here's what we found. And by the way, I have an agency. Using all the tools, we're a Facebook partner and a Google Premier partner. The data from the marketplace from cars is almost double the performance of anything we can do using generic audience, which is what you guys are using. I bring this up is that this product doesn't exist, but my point of coming here is to bring to you ideas that can change the world. And lastly, as I close, messaging versus email. Please do not take platforms, horizontal platforms like Trader Hans or Markbots, which is a messaging first culture. Messaging first. And use email. Independent dealers love Markbots or Trader Hans because they talk with the consumer on the messaging. But big dealer holding groups like Van Mossel will take those conversations and basically respond to people via email, which is not, it's what, because there's no other choice. So I've challenged the leaders at Markbots and Trader Hans to make a big, bold move themselves. Not to change their messaging app, but to publish an API so that the larger dealer holding groups or technology companies can create a single messaging interface so they could message with Facebook and message with WhatsApp and finally message directly with Markbots or Trader Hans so that you can significantly increase the conversion rate of consumers who see your vehicles on a marketplace website. In the US, when that happens, again, the conversion at least doubles. And even though there are some patches to it, it's something that this community of marketplace websites have to change. Is this a good use of your day today?
Yes.
Thank you. Paul's telling me that they want to clean this space because there's like a party coming in tonight or something. Who knows? But I want to thank you for your time. If you, I'll be staying around if you have some questions. Have a great selling year and make sure that you take the time to rethink modern automotive retailing. Thank you.